Hello, fur guys and fur girls and fellow NB comrades. Today we're going to be talking about free and open source software and why it is highly important for both you and I. I am a relatively new user to Linux, but even in my 4 months that I have used it, I can assure you that free and open source software is highly important for our safety and our privacy on the web. How does free and open source software so good, you may be asking? Well, firstly, it holds the developers accountable. Being able to see the source code of software allows for developers to be criticized freely by the end users and even be assisted by volunteers and other community developers to make this programs much more effective and easy to use. This allows for programs to evolve quicker and be more usable for the end user. This also allows for programmers to be called out if they put spyware in their software or do not know how to code, making it overall safer and more effective. The second reason why free and open source software is highly important is because it makes applications more secure. In the world of proprietary software, security by obscurity is the king, but this simply does not work because when you have your software hidden from the entire world, it makes it easier to slack off on important security and does not allow for any sort of criticism or input to make the software more secure. This is why open source software tends to be much more secure. The community input leads to the software being safer for the end user, and, like said earlier, also holds the developer accountable. Another absolutely fantastic example of why free and open source software is important is that it encourages collectivization and even eliminates the profit motive in the projects. This is due to the system of community engagement that is typically used with open source software. This allows for programs that the community likes to be promoted heavily and spread and made better than they were before, while programs that the community does not like get eliminated due to this donation system. So it also opens the ability for people to volunteer in their favorite projects. And overall, this is a fantastic system for making sure that people's voice gets heard. Another fantastic advantage, even with this system, is that companies are unable to get a foothold for most part in the tech industry. This is best demonstrated in the GNU/Linux project. Even though some companies may have a control, for example, the Red Hat Corporation, they are obliged and have to share their code and are much more responsible for what they do due to the fact that their code is publicly available. This all makes it much more difficult for spyware to be added into your applications and for making sure that the products that you use in your daily life are as good as they can be. To add on to it, open source projects, including the Linux project, are highly decentralized. This allows for parts of the kernels that some may not like to be removed and interchanged with other ones. This makes it more difficult for monolithic, also known as large scale and in multiple areas, to be formed. When they do, though, there tend to be alternatives. An example of this would be systemd, an init system commonly used in Linux. It is used in the largest distributions, but even with that, there are alternatives. For example, OpenRC and Runit are alternative init systems that Linux uses and that the people can use in other Linux distributions if they choose not to want to use systemd. Overall, I think the Linux and the Unix philosophy are wonderful, and the work done by the hundreds, if not thousands, of developers in the Linux project and in other open source softwares are absolutely fantastic, and I adore them. It takes a lot of work to put your time and energy into an open source project, especially when sometimes the reward for it may not be as big as working in a lucrative company. And even with that, free and open source software is just simply better in several ways. This is Fur Tech Time, and I hope you have a fantastic and wonderful night.